Hi everyone, today I'm going to tell you 3 simple steps that you can do to get analytics into your life, to do data analysis, even if you're not related to data analysis, if you're not a data scientist in any way. This is going to give you competitive advantage at work, whatever job you do, whatever role you have, whether you're a designer, project manager, product owner, software developer, you will have to work with data in one way or another. I will talk about how you can build relationship with your analytics team if you have any in your company. I will talk about how you can create this analytical mindset and think creatively about the problems that you have at work or in your personal life. And I will share some tips on how you can learn the most basic and most important tools to do data analysis and data visualization. Imagine the situation at work when you have to put together a really cool and very important presentation for a specific customer, and you need to put there several numbers that are gonna show you how much better your product is than your competitors. For that, you really need to ask the data scientist or data analyst in your company to give you those numbers, and you're really in a rush, but you know that 30% of the data science team is on vacation, 30% of them are on some fancy conference talking about machine learning and AI and the future of data, and the rest are really swamped with a lot of tasks, a lot of questions coming for them from various different places. So instead of sitting down and praying that the gods of prioritization will help you solve this problem and put your task on top of their backlog, you can actually attempt to answer it yourself. To be able to provide a trustworthy and comprehensive number, you actually need to do several steps before that. You need to adapt the analytical thinking, you need to know where the data is in your company and what tools are there to access it, and you need to be able to do basic data manipulation to kind of know how to interpret the data yourself. This is actually a direction where a lot of big tech companies are going to. They're trying to democratize the data and make it accessible for any kind of employee in their company and provide insights without having to engage with a data scientist or a product analyst, for example. So if you want to stay ahead of this trend and be prepared for using the data to answer your questions by yourself, first things first that you need to do is build connection with your data science team or product analyst team or whatever it's called in your company. This is very important because you need to learn what kind of tools they have, what kind of tools they use to access the data. You need to know what kind of data is available at all. You need to know what kind of dashboards and ready-to-use data sets are there available that you can just dig in yourself and get insights from. And the most important one, you need to ask a lot of questions. Speaking from my own experience, data scientists are super happy when they get asked questions not only about what is this number, but also about how can I get this information next time without having to bother you. Pick your favorite data scientist from a data scientist team, sit down with him or her, have a lunch, discuss what they have, just like try to build a connection, network with them a little bit, maybe get invited to some of their conferences or learning meetings where they share some reports and results. Just pretty much try to be in this kind of culture of data science and data analysis, and they're going to be much more willing to answer your questions if you're nice to them, which is probably the case for anyone in the world. So yeah, a little bit of Captain Obvious here. To be able though to ask questions that are easy to answer and easy to understand, you need to embed analytical thinking and analytical mindset in your life. Analytical thinking and critical thinking is really important, not only at work, but also in our personal lives. I don't think I should really say why. There are tons of news, there's tons of data flying around, and you should be able to kind of approach it critically and make sense of it. I do also recommend taking a course on analytical thinking if you are a little bit more invested in this area and want to spend your time on learning. There's a course about analytical thinking that I'm going to link down below in the description. It talks about basic statistics, basic decision making, several biases that we can have when we are making decisions. So I think it's a pretty good comprehensive overview of various tools that you can have to be able to do data analysis and to be able to think critically and analytically. And the most important part about analytical thinking is that you have to be curious, you have to keep curious, learning about the world and various sources of data we have in the world. There's a lot of really good blogs about data, but some of them are a little bit too specific and too scientific for general public, maybe just not that interesting to look into. I do recommend reading TechCrunch or The Verge. They do have some really good articles sometimes about how the data that we have in social networks is used on us. So you can try to take it as an inspiration. I do want to warn you, this is really tricky path forward, because when you're starting to learn, especially if you didn't know from the very beginning, when you start to learn about what kind of data is collected by all the big tech companies, it can really get you into the hole of being very paranoid about everything that is tracked in the world. So try to stay a little bit more focused and grounded. Don't take it too paranoid, but maybe change a privacy setting on some apps on what kind of data is collected on you, and maybe read some of those emails you get from Google where they say they changed the data collection policy and then you just agreed and then didn't read it. There are also a few data-related blogs that are interesting to read. Some of the big companies usually have like a Medium blog where they talk about data science and how they use their data for analyzing user behavior, so you can look into that. I personally can recommend Cassie Kozyrkov. She's a head of decision intelligence at Google, and she writes really nice but easy to read articles about data science and data analytics, what's important to know when you're doing analytics, what kind of types of analysis are there. She also writes about machine learning, so I think this is a really nice and easy-ish read if you're not a data scientist or don't have a computer science background. I'm gonna link it also down below. And she's also has a lot of talks, so if you're interested in that, you can look at her on YouTube. Try to stay curious and just accept the fact that data is everywhere. You're creating it, it's being collected on you, so it's really your advantage to know what kind of data is there on you and how maybe you can use it for your own benefit. And step number 3 is learning the tools. Tools for data analysis are very important. There is a lot of hype about various different tools and programming languages that one might need to know, but I would say if you're not a data scientist, you don't have to learn Python or R. Forget about it. This is not really important. The tools are just a way for you to be able to make sense of data and visualize it. And even the most simple ones are just going to give you so much value that you really don't need to get scared and think that the only way you can do data analysis is by learning Python or R. This is definitely not the case. Data scientists tend to be a little bit snobbish around spreadsheets and Excel, but I would say this is the most basic and the most important one to learn if you especially haven't done any kind of data analysis. They have immense power on doing very easy and very hands-on visualizations and data manipulations. I recommend taking a really small course and watching a few videos on how to do data analysis in Excel or spreadsheets. I'm going to link down below one from Coursera that I looked into. If you, however, never worked with spreadsheets, what I do recommend is starting with your own problem, something that's interesting for you, and trying to do various visualizations. For example, I have a spreadsheet where I track all of my travels, how much I spend per different category of travel, like flights, food, car rental, accommodation, and so on. So try to find this kind of question that you want to get answered for your own life. Maybe it's how much calories you're consuming, or maybe it's how much you're running, or maybe it is your budget and your spending, and use the power of spreadsheets to manipulate your own data, to do visualizations. This way is the easiest one to learn and the most interesting one for you, because you will get the value out of it. Second important part to learn as the tool is visualization. There's a very famous quote in data science community about lies. There are 3 types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And this kind of relates to the topic of misleading graphs. You've probably seen some of those on the news or in some presentations where people are trying to adjust the way they present visually the information to kind of make a bigger impact or show a trend that's not necessarily there. I'm going to link down below some resources about what is a misleading graph. Generally, of course, I believe all of us are very honest and interested to show the real picture, so we don't want to make our graphs misleading or ambiguous for the reader to understand. Google has written up really good data visualization guidelines, so I'm going to link those as well, where they talk about different types of graphs, what is the good way to represent what kind of information, when do you need to use the timeline graph, where do you need to use the bar chart, when and if you need to use the pie chart, and so on. There are also some resources on data visualization rules that I'm going to link down below as well. I think it's a very interesting read about how to be honest in representing your data, how to write good headlines, how to create charts that tell the story, which is also very important. This is a little bit more advanced tab, but I think it does add a lot of value if you have to do a lot of presentations and have to present data for your stakeholders in many different ways. And the step number 3, or like a little bit of a bonus step for those who know a little bit of coding, so maybe for software engineers. Of course, you've probably heard about Python and R. I already said about them as well. You don't have to know them to be able to work with data, manipulate it, and present it in the best possible way. I really don't think that's important unless you want to be a data scientist and work as a data scientist. You can use any language that you are using yourself. You can use PHP, Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, C++, and whatnot to be able to present and manipulate data. I personally recommend focusing on either Java or JavaScript. There are really nice JavaScript visualization libraries, for example, D3GS, which you can use for creating beautiful interactive charts. But again, the tool here is not the most important one. The most important one is having the right question and trying to get the right answer. Maybe you have some question that can be answered using your skills through data analysis. For example, if you want to build a real-time monitoring of the errors that are there in your app, you can use JavaScript for building this kind of tool. You just need to know where you can get the data. And for those who code, I do recommend learning SQL or structured query language. There can be different flavors, but generally the language is the same, just to be able to write simple queries, do some joins, do some filtering that will actually give you much more advantage than learning Python or R or any other programming language when it comes to data analysis. So to reiterate again, you don't need to learn specific new languages necessarily to be able to answer the question. You need to embed analytical thinking in your life because the question is more important than the tool. To sum up what I've been just talking about, to be able to embed analytics in your life, leverage it, and get your competitive advantage, you need to build connection with your data science team. You need to know what data there is available. You need to know what kind of tools they're using, and just generally kind of get into their field. You need to be able to embed analytical thinking in your life and think about everything that surrounds you in terms of what kind of data is there and how you can leverage it. You need to be curious about the world and different types of data that is collected on you from different apps, thinking about how you can leverage it, thinking about what you are okay to share and what you're not okay to share, and just generally think about how various resources can be connected to each other. For example, your calendar with your email, with your fitness tracker, with your Facebook messaging patterns or whatever. Just like try to be inventive with that. I think this really creates the kind of ability to think analytically in terms of the data points, and it will help you to understand how you can use this data at work as well. And in terms of tech and tools, it's really important to know your basics, data manipulation in Excel or spreadsheets at least, but tools are not as important, again, as asking the right question and knowing how you can leverage information that you have. So I would still recommend you to put more effort into this rather than learning this fancy new library or fancy new language to be able to manipulate the data. Thank you for watching. It was a super brief overview of how you can embed analytics in your life, and I really do want to know what are your questions around that, whether you want to know more about various tools that you can use or more about analytical thinking and how apply it to different problems. Please let me know in the comments if there is any particular area that you're more interested in, and I will try to cover it in the future videos. Thank you for your time. To support me, please subscribe to my channel and like this video, and also follow me on Instagram for more real-time updates on the life of the data scientist in Stockholm. Have a nice day!